a bit of, maybe a bit of personal politics that goes on between certain bands. And
how's it going, guys? I recently sat down with Duncan from Crust Promotions and asked him a few questions about what it's like to be a promoter in the underground music scene right here in Edinburgh. So if you're interested in a few tips and tricks for promoting bands and maybe just a little bit of dirt on a famous band, then stay tuned.
you can go really far back, and the first couple of gigs I ever did were just like uni projects. So they were just like, it was like do a business, put on something. And I think that was more like just putting on friends' bands. So there's nothing too serious. But I think if you kind of fast forward a bit, it took a big gap from promoting from like my early 20s to my late 20s, and basically was just kind of at capacity with my normal job, which is teaching guitar lessons, and I was just bored. I'd just been kind of on autopilot for a couple of years with that, and just said I could do something else, and apart from teaching. So I just thought I'll put on some gigs. Originally the plan was I was just going to put some gigs on for my own old band Glacier, and then I was just talking to a guy from who I used to go to college with, who's in a band called Geist, and he was just saying, we're struggling to get a promoter in Scotland. So and he said they're actually touring with this American band at the time, and when he told me the price of it, I was like, I can probably help out with that. And just booked a venue, and that was my first gig, and it was just it was a really good gig, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And then proceeded to put on my own band at a few gigs, and then kind of a few agents start getting in touch saying, we've heard your gigs are pretty good, and you go from there really. I like anything that's heavy. I think in Scotland I've kind of got a reputation maybe as being like a bit of a kind of a stoner doom guy. But last couple of weeks ago I put like a death metal gig on. Tonight was a hardcore show. If it's heavy and it's good, I'll put it on. I think when I first came to Edinburgh, because I was just kind of studying at uni and stuff, maybe wasn't from the area, I didn't really know it very well, and I'd say I've only really been involved in it in the past kind of say 5 years or so. I think it's healthy in the sense that most of the gigs are well attended to a certain point. You've got one or two bands who do really, really well, and I think it's just like in the middle. It's not the best scene in the world, but I don't think it's the worst either.
Are you looking to change that?
I think I definitely like to think I'm adding to it for sure. I don't think it needs to be changed or anything like that, because I think it was always kind of healthy before I ever got involved. And I do think I'm just doing gigs that are different to maybe what else was going on. You've got kind of regular nights at like the Banshee, like with Hellraiser, and I always think those guys do a really good job. You've got kind of the bigger promoters in Glasgow that still put stuff in Edinburgh, and they do a good job. So I just think I just add to that. I think that like you really could go on. I mean, I could. I talk to my fellow kind of promoters about stuff like this all the time, but everything from kind of like local bands maybe playing too much. That's often kind of like a regular problem, I would say, for my gigs. There's a lot more extra little costs that I think people don't realise that go on gigs. You pay, not just room fees, but you pay like PRS. You pay, little things like rider. Just lots of little costs that kind of add up. I don't think people realise that goes into making a good gig. You've obviously got social media and all that kind of stuff, so you've got to pay for ads and pay for good posters and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on. On top of that, you're trying to organise 3 or 4 bands, to get together as well. So there's the human element. I think you kind of have gigs that kind of come to memory that you could kind of go, I'm amazed that night happened or something like that. But I think with COVID happening recently, there's been a lot of bands just dropping out last minute. And I've been like phoning bands kind of at midnight 2 days before the gig, and you get those kind of stories. I've had ones before where, like, once I was doing a gig in Dundee, where just the power cut out in the middle of the gig. I wasn't very experienced at the time, so I was just like, what do I do? I just didn't have a clue, and I just thought everyone's going to kill me. They're going to want their ticket money back and stuff like that. And then the gig just carried on in someone's flat. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. That's pretty sweet.
Because I guess the gig was like, had 40 people and the flat was pretty big. They just fit in the flat. I think the gig was probably better being in the flat. You've definitely got a bigger budget to work with, but you've also kind of got to be responsible with that budget, because a lot of the costs can get, you can get carried away with it. So you've got to try your best to stick to that.
Yeah.
There's maybe because you're working with bigger bands, you've got bigger agents to work with, things like that. There's a bit of, maybe a bit of personal politics that goes on between certain bands, and which bands higher up than others and things like that. There's one band who their agent tried to renegotiate their fee to 2.5 times what they agreed previously. And even though you want them to be part of the festival, the budget is the budget.
Yeah.
And the tickets already sold at the bottleneck, and that band, really, either if it's coming from the band or the agent, won't be playing the festival. So you get disappointing things like that. No, I mean, like with the first festival, I just kind of thought, what's like a sensible amount of people, and you figure out from the tickets what you think can be a budget, and then the actual day happens, and you get a more, you get the exact number. You said the first festival did this many tickets with this kind of a budget, and then you just make like a projection for the next festival, and you use that budget.
Yeah.
And fingers crossed.
So you kind of have to be an avid reader of the Economic Times or the Economist, and do you need to kind of know your finances really well?
Yeah, I think if, promotion you can get quite nerdy with the finances and things and percentages and things, and I certainly do, and I think the venue I'm trying to fill has a certain cap, and you know how far you were to it, say last time, and you think, well, if I increase the budget this much and have bigger bands, once we fill it, that's the festival kind of done.
Yeah.
And it'll just stay there at that cap for a while, or it'll maybe one day to a bigger venue or something. But I'm hoping this festival, really fills it.
Yeah.
I think you reflect a lot in the pandemic and stuff about kind of where you think you're at and things. I definitely want it to become more diverse, so I don't want to just be kind of pigeonholed as being a promoter does one kind of style. And also, I think I started off in Edinburgh, but I think now I kind of do as many gigs in Glasgow as I do Edinburgh. And when I do tours with some of the bands, so I kind of help out with booking, kind of manage a little bit. I go to Aberdeen, I go to Dundee, go to Inverness now, so I kind of want Red Crust to be kind of like a promotion for the whole of Scotland, not just Edinburgh, and being just inclusive of anything that's heavy. I would say if it's heavy and it's good, I'll put it on.
Cool. Well, thanks for talking to me, bro.
Yeah.